computer. So, welcome to the WordPress Portsmouth Meetup of November 2022. We today are going to talk about Headless WordPress and 101, an introduction to Headless or Decoupled or Static WordPress, whatever you think it is. And I'm going to try to talk to you for 45 minutes until we get to a Q&A and have a Q&A for about 15 minutes, and then we get to the wrap-up to the end of the WordPress Portsmouth meetups, where I go through a load of stuff which is pretty much the same about the plans for WordPress, how we're getting on and all that sort of stuff. And we should close by 8:30. And then I go on fast because I've got a blood test tomorrow morning, bright and early. So, Headless WordPress 101. I've got 12 different slides, or maybe a few more than that, and we're going to try to cover these particular things. So, first question, what is Headless WordPress? Then Andrew's question, is it just generated HTML? Some of you may have heard of a thing called Jamstack. What's that? And then we eventually get to see how it does this Headless WordPress differ from traditional WordPress. We've discussed the benefits and the pros and the issues, the cons of Headless WordPress. And then 15-question quiz that WordPress VIP produced some while ago. Are you ready for Headless WordPress, basically? And all yes is you answer, the chances are you're ready for it. We'll have a look at 3 different paid solutions that I've discovered and played with, and a number of different free solutions as well, which is just WordPress plugins and or other functionality. And then I might get a chance to give you some examples of Headless WordPress, some very basic examples from the samples that are provided by the companies I've used. Talk briefly about deployment of Headless WordPress, because it's different from normal WordPress. And finally, a whole load of links for where you can read some more. So if that's all acceptable to you, yes? Good, I'll carry on. Right, first thing. So I asked a question, what experience do you have with Headless WordPress? Give a value from 0 to 5. And the answers are, a lot of people have no experience at all. Some have heard of it. A few have tried it. And I'm now in that category. 3 use it. 2 know enough to recommend or discourage use of it. And 2 people have said it's my specialist subject. And today, Miriam Schwab is here. She's a specialist subject, and she is going to join us in the Q&A to tell you all about her specialist subject. And she is the head of strategy at a company called Strattic. And a number of people didn't reply. But I suppose they're probably in their 1s, 2s, or 3s. So the level that we have to talk at is not deep, hopefully. So, Headless WordPress. Some people consider the existing WordPress, we have traditional WordPress, as monolithic, in that it's everything bundled together in one big lump. So you have the code and the theme and the API and the backend UI all in your one WordPress. And that's what you get when you do the 5-minute install. You install WordPress, you install WordPress 6.1.1, and you get a theme called 2023, and it's all there. You don't have to do anything else. Headless is where you break it into different bits and you do what's known as decoupling, where you separate out the front end from the back end and they connect via an API, an application programming interface. Now, the terms, I've got what is headless and what is decoupled here, come from WordPress VIP resource called Decoupled WordPress. And by the end of this 45 minutes or so, you may have an idea what headless is, and you may have an idea what decoupled is. And after 3 weeks, I think, is it headless WordPress or is it backless WordPress? Because I've got a new front end now, so WordPress is still there. I don't know what it's called. So the question was, is it just generated HTML? And the answer I've got here only makes any sense once you've seen a bit more. Basically, yes, that's a very good question. And some people implement it as generated HTML. You take your whole WordPress website and you run a process and generate all of the HTML that anyone's ever going to see. And you put that somewhere on a system with a nice CDN, whatever that stands for. What does CDN stand for?
Content distribution.
Content delivery network. And people never actually go to visit WordPress because they just go and get to see they just get to see the pages that you generated. And if you ever change something, you just regenerate it and off it goes. Now that's a solution by Strattic. The other solution is you use something like a little bit of JavaScript, which can do all sorts of fancy stuff. It doesn't talk to WordPress very often, or doesn't have to talk to WordPress very often. And by this method, you can make your site faster and more secure, apparently. So this Jamstack thing, which used to stand for JavaScript APIs Markup and is now just a term used to describe any of the different things which aren't basically WordPress and are decoupled things, is something that JavaScript developers like because it's all driven by a Git-centric workflow, which means they write a piece of code, they get it reviewed by somebody, and then they deploy it. And the magic systems operate so that your code now gets delivered to the website without you having to do all that horrible FTP stuff or zipping and unzipping plugins and themes and so on and so forth. And it's all to do with these lovely tools you have for building the front end using different frameworks of JavaScript. And the words I've written here come from a presentation by Matt, I can't remember his surname, which you will find if you visit jamstack.org. What is Jamstack? Now that's all I'm going to say about Jamstack. I think that someone might ask some questions about it later. So here we have some pictures from WP Engine's blog, What is Headless WordPress? And I've put the two together to try to explain, without having to flip backwards and forwards between the two, the differences. At the top, you can see the traditional WordPress. So the publisher, that's the content creator, will use WordPress to write posts, put pictures in and videos and so on, and it's all done inside WordPress. And the way that appears to the end user, it depends on what the developer has done with regards to developing plugins and themes and maybe providing a few resources as well, and writing some JavaScript. Now, in a largish system, you might have a content delivery network in between the person who's visiting the website and your WordPress site. But basically, the person comes to the website, says, I want to see this page, and WordPress gets fired up and says, right, so you need to see that page. This is the content you get, and I'll format that to you in the theme and return that to you as HTML. I could probably move the mouse about a bit and then you might be able to see something better. So that's how it works. Next request comes in and it goes off to WordPress. WordPress says, oh, look, there's another person who wants to visit that page. I'll go and construct that thing and I'll return it to you, and so on and so forth. And you can see that your website is going to be hit and has to do something for every single request that comes in if it isn't for a straightforward flat file like an image or a license.txt file. In Headless WordPress, the developers say we're going to make it more efficient for the visitor to come to our site and see stuff by using some fancy code which will prepare in advance the content that the user is going to see. And people use node.js to do this. So the content delivery network gets a request and it says, I need to see this page. And the node.js says, oh, okay then, this one I've already prepared and I can give that one to you, and it returns it statically. Or it says, oh no, I need to go and get that from WordPress, and it sends a simple request to WordPress saying, give us page 127 and be quick about it. And it returns the contents of page 127, and then Node.js puts that into some HTML that it's got and fires that back to the user. Now, if the publisher decides to write an update to post number 127, then lo and behold, the Node.js will detect that and will prepare that for the next reply to the visitor. So it doesn't have to be accessed every single time. So the person who's creating the content still gets to create it in exactly the same way using the WordPress backend, but how it's displayed at the front end is now different because the front end has now been rewritten using a bit of JavaScript. That wouldn't be quite the same for a static website, where the Strattic solution would be more like the sort of, it's delivering it from the CDN and a different version of the website. Does any of that make sense?
The only question I have is, this seems awfully close to providing a page cache.
Yes.
How different is that?
Well, because the page cache is now cached inside this Node.js code rather than inside WordPress itself.
But there are caching solutions that are separate and external to WordPress, are there not?
Yes. What? So like, if you happen to be using SiteGround hosting and you're using Nginx in there, then it will cache your page inside Nginx, so that if it's requested again, you'll see the same content. Yes, there are different solutions.
Yeah. Okay.
There's thousands of different solutions.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just another way of getting to that end result that you were looking for.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question.
All right.
When the publisher, he's doing kind of WYSIWYG, isn't he? He's given a template and he creates something in what he thinks is in WordPress. And then you're saying they would take that and perhaps rearrange it so it might look completely different.
There is this possibility that will happen.
How would that work? Because that wouldn't work at all.
Well, that's where we get to the pros and cons, Andrew, of what's this all about then? Sometimes the content is just raw. Sorry, I lost you.
I can't see the pro side to that. I can only see the con.
Yeah, no, well, that's because, yes,
it seems to add
lots of cons.
It seems to add a lot more complexity to the whole thing, basically.
Indeed.
I mean,
Right,
it looks very simple, the top part, but the bottom it looks very complex and certainly troubleshooting. Surely it must add to a lot of headaches with that, I should think.
Yep, certainly. Let's just move on. We'll get to the pros and cons in a minute. So here we have the component parts of a solution which uses this Node.js server. Now, Node.js is different from Apache and and Nginx. And I don't really know how it works, but basically you go and visit something and a Node.js server responds to you by running its own stuff. So it's, instead of being PHP, it's written in Node.js. And it doesn't necessarily talk to the database, because it doesn't do that, because it uses this application programming interface. So the different frameworks that people use to create headless things are React, which is what's used in Gutenberg and Facebook. Next, and Faust.js is one, and that's what we'll see from the solution from WP Engine. Then there's Vue.js and Nuxt, whatever that is, Svelte and SvelteKit, and also a thing called Gatsby. So different ways of creating basically the same stuff inside the Node.js. I suppose it's a bit like using different page builders. So some people might like to use Elementor, other people like Divi, others like Gutenberg, and others like other different page builders, and I can't think of any names. WP Bakery. These bits of JavaScript, whenever they do need to talk to WordPress, will use some application programming interfaces, and there are two popular ones that are used. The REST API is built into WordPress, and this will provide all the data that you got for whatever you're looking for, a post or a page or some custom post type or a user or other different things. Lots and lots of stuff it can return. GraphQL has a different view on life. It says you ask for what you want and you'll get what you want. So it restricts its output to what you ask for, basically. But you can ask for more than one thing at the same time, which is a bit fun. Now, in order for GraphQL to work, there's a WordPress plugin called WP GraphQL. And in order for the Faust framework to work, where you're visiting what appears to be the front end of the website, there's a plugin called Faust WP. And in order for Gatsby to work, there's a plugin called WP Gatsby. Now, there's also these things called themes, which WP Gatsby has. And I suppose that basically anything that you create as this front-end stuff is a theme, but it's not something you just go and get off the shelf. Well, not yet anyway, not as far as I can tell. Although you can start building these things just by building apps using JavaScript. So that link down there, WP Engine, com, blog, headless, WordPress, tech stack options, shows you that picture and describes more about it. And there's also another link called headless plugins. So we can just about see how it's sort of made up. So what do we think are the benefits of a headless CMS? Now, on the right-hand side are the words that were written by WP Engine and a bit of marketing stuff, and you can read those. On the left-hand side, I've listed out some of the things that people argue being the benefits for a headless WordPress or any headless CMS. And they are security, reliability, performance, speed, scalability, omnichannel, flexibility, and appearance. So what it says is security. Your website is more secure because people aren't visiting WordPress and they aren't going to be doing things to your WordPress database by injecting nasty stuff. It makes it more reliable because there's, if it's definitely if it's static, because there's nothing to break. If there's no moving parts, they can't break. Your site is faster because it's being delivered as a serverless website. It doesn't go and run an awful lot of code on the server to go and deliver what you asked for. It's just delivering prepared content. And therefore, another way of talking about that is it makes it faster on the front end because you've written the JavaScript very nicely and the HTML very nicely, so you're not delivering all of that stuff that plugins and themes deliver, a whole load of different CSS and JavaScript and jQuery that you don't actually need on this particular page. Because you're not talking to WordPress database very much, then the system can scale up, and if they're better, so you can handle more requests, but you can scale it by having multiple instances of this node.js server delivering responses to your customers. An omnichannel means that if you happen to want to deliver your content in an app to a mobile phone or to the Internet of Things, whatever that means, then you can do that because you're getting all your data from WordPress CMS, but you're delivering it using a different front end. And therefore, you've got this flexibility of what you can do. You're not just restricted to how WordPress wants to do it. You can do whatever you like. And therefore, you can make it look however you like. Now, if you happen to be EBPS, British Pteridological Society, and you've got content which has been generated in the server, you don't want that changed. You want it just to be delivered as part of your, exactly as you've done it. But the way you can make it a lot faster is you could have it produced statically, and anyone who visits that page would just get the static content that was generated. Whenever you make a change, regenerate the static stuff and deliver that. I'm not arguing that you want to do that one, but there is this potential. However, it costs a lot of money to do this because, as everyone thinks, it's more complicated and there's a lot more work. And you've got to have developers to do this. This is not something that you as a WordPress enthusiast can simply do, because you actually have to write JavaScript or something. And some people say that there's limited tools for creators. You don't have the tools to easily build your content and to see it. Again, the WP Engine's words on the right-hand side, they're taken from their potential issues. Now, I'm sure many people can think of many more pros and many people can think of more cons. But I haven't got time to cover that, I don't think. So let's have a look. Can you answer yes to all of these questions? If you can answer yes, then you are ready to start Headless. If you can't answer yes to any 3 or 4 of them, then you probably don't want to. I don't even understand some of the questions. Do I wish to serve flat files? Not quite sure what that one means. Am I prepared to tolerate a higher total cost of ownership overall? No. Am I prepared to manage 2 code bases and increased code complexity? Maybe. Am I prepared to manage 2 hosting environments? Don't know anything about the second one yet. Am I prepared to tolerate more complex support and incident management? That was Mike's concern. Yes, it is more complicated. No, not really. And am I expecting my app to scale to very intense traffic events? No. So I reckon I'm about halfway there. I've got some sites I'd like to have a go at doing it with, but I don't want to spend loads and loads of money doing it. And I certainly don't understand the caching strategy that would be necessary to scale my app. So what about you? Anyone think they're ready for Headless? No.
It's good, perhaps, if you've got a lot of spare time on your hands and you want to have a play with something, maybe. But yeah, I would. If you wanted to go along that route, surely you would just go with just building your own site and not use a WordPress base. I mean, what would be the advantages?
Well, if you've already started with a WordPress website, which quite a lot of us here have, then you can make use of that content, and you know about that content. So
I think also it depends whether you're working with a team of people. So if the people that write your content, the authors, are more used to WordPress, then it means they can write the content in the WordPress backend but you might have a team of web developers that use things like node.js, and they can build and change the front end of your website quicker using the tools they understand. Right. And therefore, at that point, it makes sense to have headless WordPress. So you get the benefits of ease of creating the content, but also that decoupled, so it's not controlling your front end, and especially if you've got an app that pulls in the same information, because obviously apps use a very different display technology. But I think if it's just, us building our sites, it's probably a little bit overkill for us.
Yeah, well, if you're building for a customer, it's, unless there's a real specific need, it's just going to add a lot of cost to their build, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when you get to the bits which and I won't be able to cover them today, difficult parts like contact forms or e-commerce or something like that. So, yes, of course we want to try headless. That's why we're here. So the paid solutions that I've looked at briefly are Strattic by Elementor, and this is the one which creates static WordPress hosting. And they do have solutions for contact forms, and they do have solutions for comments, and they do working on solutions for different e-commerce things as well. And basically you put your site into Strattic, and then you say, right, can I deploy that to my testing site, please, preview? And then when you're happy with that, you say, can I deploy that to my live site, please? And it does it. And you can also say, I've made a minor change, I'd like to deploy that change, and it does that as well without having to do the whole thing. So that's all right. And you can start backing on that one for $32.50 a month. I also looked at WP Engine's solution, which is called Atlas. And they say it's the future of headless WordPress. And I've got 4 months free to try it out. Otherwise, it's going to cost from £24 per month. So I'll probably just use the 4 months free and then stop it. We can look at that. And there's another one called Gatsby WP Themes, which looked quite interesting. And I started following a workshop run by a person who the workshop was at WordCamp Europe. And unfortunately, I couldn't get it to work because of something strange in my computer that wasn't happy with a little bit of the JavaScript. Have you just let Nate Finch in? Drew?
Is it really true that it's easy? The first two, anyway, in one click. And
I would see that, yes.
I mean, is it really, have they got a system which actually does make it easy and you don't have to know what you're doing?
Just about, yes. But you have to know what you can do and what you can't do. But otherwise it is easy. So Strattic is an easy solution. Atlas is you're going to write lots of code. Gatsby, I couldn't get it to work, I'm afraid. Right, the free solutions. So we saw previously the different components. So you can go and get Faust.js as a bit of code which you can download. So you can build something the same as WP Engine solution. Or you can get Next.js, which Faust.js actually uses, or you can get Gatsby. And there you have some JavaScript stuff that you can download and start building in your node.js environment. GraphQL is a free API which you can use and use combined with the GraphQL plugin. Then I just realised I'm looking at the slides, which the slides are not my PowerPoint, so I've made some changes. Then you download GraphQL, implement the plugin on the server, and you now have a different way of talking to your another API to talk to WordPress other than the REST API. If you wanted to generate a static site but didn't want to go with Strattic solution, then you can use the plugin called WP2 Static, which was on WordPress.org, was taken off there by the author for certain reasons and is now actually part of Strattic's solution. It hasn't yet been put back on WordPress.org, and we might hear from Nate and/or Miriam about some plans to do that in the future. But I used that one and I generated a static version of one of my sites quite quickly. And then there's a number of different headless WordPress plugins which you install on your WordPress, which basically makes the WordPress say, I'm headless, you can only talk to me via a different front end. And then each of these different plugins can benefit from communicating with other plugins listed in the other WordPress plugins section. Click on any of these links and it should take you to the right place. So some different examples we're going to try to cover. The first one, we'll have a look at a website called wpsecrets.co.uk, and we'll have a look at that website and then have a look at how it's implemented using Strattic. And then we're going to see what it looks like when I created a version of that using WP to Static. Then we'll look at a number of different solutions from WP Engine using Atlas. And over a few days, I first of all tried the Atlas Blueprint blog, and then I tried Atlas Faust, and I put that under my local development environment called Local, which is a tool by WP Engine. Did we talk about that last month? Local development environments. Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, all about it.
Yeah.
And then I basically took it out of the local environment and put it into my homegrown environment and tried again against a website which I call quicker.local, which is based on quicker.com, which we saw back in February. And then finally, I started creating my own theme, I suppose is what it's called, which I've called Fist, which is the English translation of Faust. But in fact, I'm going to pronounce it first, F, and then first. So hopefully we'll get a chance to look at that in 15 minutes or so. So before we do that, just a few slides. Strattic.com. You benefit from outstanding security, speed, scalability, and ease of use, and it can be 50 times faster. All in one site, static site generation and hosting platform. We'll have a look at my website called wpsecrets.co.uk, and then we'll see the 3 different Strattic sites that represent it. If you watch this video down here, then you can see a nice demo of it all. And I'm going to try to get back to wpsecrets.co.uk. So this is the original site of a poem I wrote in 2015, Top 10 WordPress Misconceptions. Do you all agree with these? Not scalable. So I'm actually logged into this site, so you can see it's a WordPress site. This is true. 200 million visits in just over a week, and on a really busy day, 5K per sec at peak. Maybe it is. Right. That's my WordPress site. Very simple. It's just a few pages, and it's actually built now on the 2023 theme using a style called, can't remember. Right. Strattic. Here I am logged into Strattic, and I have the website. I've just imported it into Strattic. The live site is called wp-secrets-229c.live.strattic.io because it's a free site and I haven't used my own custom domain for it. So let's go and have a look at it in WordPress. Now, the reason it's faster is because, well, the reason it's more secure is because WordPress isn't actually loaded up until you ask it to be loaded up. So it's brought into a container and spun up is the term for it, and then when you've not used it for a while, it gets spun down again. So it's just a normal WordPress website. And I think if I go and visit the website, I am now looking at my development site, so I can see what I'm creating. If I go into edit site, I'll be in the site editor. What replacement term for full site editing? If we go and have a look at my pages, you can see the content basically. Now, when I'm happy that I've changed the content, and I suppose you want me to change it when you yeah, look, long time ago I wrote this. Now I suppose I should try to convert it into a verse. No. Can I convert it into a verse in one go? No, I'll make a list. Right, WordPress 6.1 has list items. Right, I've changed my content, and I can view it. And now I want to publish it. And I've got a static button. I will publish it directly to live, shall I? And I'll do a selective publish to live or a quick publish. Let's go for that one. So what it's now doing is preparing the HTML that it needs to deliver and the other different component parts it needs. So there's certain bits of plugins and themes, the JavaScript and the CSS and so on that needs to be bundled up and put onto the site. It will regenerate the sitemap. It will do all other different things. And very quickly, our site has been published, and now we can see the website in there. If you go and visit, what did I just change? Just for blogs. So it's up there. How fast?
This looks exactly the same as yours.
This is exactly the same as mine. It should look exactly the same as mine because that's what its job is, to create it to look exactly the same. However, if I had a contact form on my site, which wasn't one of the contact forms that Strattic supports, then that contact form wouldn't work. If I also had comments on there, and you can see, look, I'm nearly the same, but I've failed to.
My other observation is you're showing us a very small.
I am showing a very small site. Yes.
Would it work with my site, or would it completely collapse?
It would probably take a very long time, but it would have problems with all of your special stuff, all of your PHP that's hand cranked, that's nothing to do with WordPress. You wouldn't be able to work with that. But you could use the solution of doing your own WP2 static and doing it that way. So shall I move on to the WP2 static one then? If we go to this site I started off with, and I go to the dashboard, and I go and look at tools, WP2 static, and I go to run and look at the logs. Some time ago, I ran the publishing of that, and it went through, and starting from down here, it generated all of the content it needed to create the site. Now, I put all that stuff into a folder. I zipped that folder down and I installed it into my PC in a folder called Quicker WP2 Static. So this is just plain HTML. So if I load up stuff, you can see that page is the original version of it. And this is just being served directly from HTML. There is still CSS being brought in and other stuff. Well, there's no images in this site, but it is static content. Now, if you want, I can actually show you that source code. Can I? Maybe later. So that's two options, and that's the static, sort of Strattic solution to it. I'll just close those down. Now, I've stopped using this Strattic site. If I stop using it for long enough, it will go away, and when I come back in again, it will try to start up. So now we'll have a look at Atlas Blueprint if we can find it. So I need to go to WP Engine. And WP Engine has a control panel of their own, which looks a bit like this. And I said I wanted to install the Atlas Blueprint, and it has magically created the source code for this blueprint in my GitHub repository called Atlas Blueprint blog. So if you wanted to see the source code for it, there it is. So we got some really weird named JavaScript because this is some dynamic stuff, and lots of code that you would have no idea what that was about if you happen to be a person who's used to creating content. This is something that JavaScript developers love because it can be quite easy to use. Now, if I go and visit this site, it is doing a little bit of something connecting to a website, and it is connecting to my own website, which was created, which contains these different things, and it's dynamically creating the menu, and it's statically created this image and all of this stuff, and dynamically it's generated the posts and loaded the posts. If I go and click on a post, then it will take you to display that post. Now this requires me to write the CSS for the styling and to write any bit of code I wanted to in order to make these bits of content display stuff. So this one isn't displaying the featured image for the post, even though we saw the featured image back here. This used GraphQL to run some queries in order to find out what the site was called, what this top and bottom menu is, to load the 3 latest posts, and also to load up some testimonials, which is put into a slider. Now, I haven't looked at any of the code that's used for this because I then moved on to something called Faust. But first of all, we have to have a look at that thing again in local or something like it. So now I could work with WP Engine and try to do something here, but you don't really want to develop things live on that site. You want to do it in a local development environment. So WP Engine uses local. I don't quite understand it because it's just a bit different from how I do something. But lo and behold, I've got something working in here. I can go to click on that, and I can go and see my WordPress version. And it automatically logged me in, which is nice because I got no idea what the password was. And if I tried to go and visit the site, well, I'll go and look at a post. So that was the first post that was written by them. I wrote 2 posts, post 2 and post 3. Update that. I've created my content. I go and view the post. It then says, no, you don't want to look at it like that. You want to go and look at it on the real site. But what it's actually trying to do is it's trying to display it using this localhost 3000 post 2, which I haven't got running yet because I need to start it up. And in fact, that's not the right port number. So it's probably not going to work. But this is where the front-end code is, and it says it's running, and there it is running, talking to localhost 10,013. So what have I done wrong? That's the right thing. Here's my posts. Hasn't found any. Never mind. This is because it's not connected to the right website, and it's because I've broken it somewhere in the last couple of weeks. But here we can see this is what a couple of weeks ago, if you were going to start using this Faust.js, you would get a home page that looked like this, and it told you to start reading all of that stuff. And I went and clicked on all those links, read them, but I never actually got to the point where I could truly develop anything. But it tells you that using this solution, you can do something called static site generation, which means the page will be generated inside the node.js so that when you visit it, that is then what's delivered. Or you can have incremental static regeneration, which I didn't understand yet. And there's also server-side generation, where something will be generated directly from the database. So the request will be going through Node.js through to your WordPress in a GraphQL query, returning response, and then displaying that content to the user. So in some cases, you will be able to get the content truly dynamically. In other cases, it's more static, and therefore it's potentially fast.
Herb, have you tried using the browser's inspector mode to compare page load times between a standard WordPress and one of these solutions?
No, I haven't done that, and I didn't actually go and look at running any Lighthouse reports against this stuff. These are very small sites, and I'm sure that I could see better results. That was the plan, was to do that, but I never got around to doing that because I ran out of time.
I understand.
The content that's displayed can look quite different. That doesn't look very nice, does it? Let's go and do an inspect. Where was I? Not that one. That one there. There's some errors. That's probably why it wasn't working.
The dreaded cause policies once again.
So here we can see the content that's been created, and it's got all these lovely IDs that have been magically created by the Node.js, and therefore the it's different from how it was written in the source code, and you might think, well, how am I supposed to style that when I don't know what the output is? But there again, the CSS gets put into SCSS, and that gets built as the Node.js code gets built. What I might be able to do is to demonstrate that once I get another one working, that once it's built and it's running and you're doing it in a developer environment, this is where the developers like it, you can make a change and it instantly displays that change on the browser without you having to do a refresh. So you could simply change some color in CSS or some padding and just wait a few seconds and the build will happen, and then that will be replaced in what you're looking at on the browser, which is quite a nice experience. Right. Now, I was going to look at the next one, which is Atlas Faust on local, or Atlas Blueprint blog against Quicker.local. And so I look at Quicker.local. Quicker.local can't be reached because I'm not running it. Right. I'm going to go to now, why, you might ask, am I putting this source code in my Apache directories when this is Node.js stuff and it runs its own thing? And the answer is just the way I work. Right, I'm going to build this thing called Faust, and if a bit of luck, it's going to be running it at localhost 3000. It's on 4000. Never mind, we can handle that. So there's this Node.js thing running. I'm going to take that away. I will then try to look at localhost 4000. Something's happening, which you can't see. So it's building this stuff for me. This is a development build, so you would expect this to happen. There it is. So now this is the Faust thing which we saw before getting started with. You can see we've now got my website called Quicker running and my website's header menu and a post, which is a chart. Let's go and click on that post. Here we have this chart, but you can see there's nothing there. I've got a screen, I've got the featured image for it. There's nothing there, and the reason there's nothing there is my code has generated a block which delivers the chart with JavaScript, but the two things haven't been tied up. So this thing doesn't understand that there's supposed to be some chart JavaScript run, and therefore it can't display anything. So there's more work to be done in order to make that work. Now, what I should have been doing was going back to each of the different slides that I was showing you rather than moving between the different demos. So maybe I should actually do that right now and see where we are.
So what is HMOE?
HMOE is a Baboinged version of Home. Baboing is the language which I use when I want to test things for internationalization. Basically, all the letters in the words, apart from the first and last, are jumbled up using a common routine. And you can just about read it, but you can see that it's actually different. So it's home. Where am I there? Baboing is a plugin available from WordPress.org if you want to use it. I did Strattic. Seen that? Then we saw the solution on WP2 static. Notice there are some slight differences between the two screen captures. The one on the left is the static version, the one on the right is the real one. And I don't yet understand why there's a difference, because there shouldn't be any. This is the Atlas Blueprint blog. I started off using Atlas Blueprint and recently went to a WP Engine thing on the future of Faust.js, and they said, yeah, we're deprecating Atlas Blueprint blog. You'll need to use Atlas Blueprint Portfolio or Atlas Blueprint Scaffold, because they're using a new version of Faust, which uses GraphQL rather than something called GQTY. There you go. We sort of saw going into WP Engine's site and didn't see that. This is what happens when you install Atlas inside your local environment. So follow that link to go and do that if you want to start working with Atlas, and you can see that getting started with Faust thing. This is how my site was set up, and this is the posts I saw when I first got to see it with post 2, which I've now changed. Then I started working with Atlas Blueprint blog against my website called quicker.local, which is a copy of quicker.com. You haven't seen quicker.com, so you don't know what that looks like. So I could show you that later. But here you can see I've managed to get it to display a logo rather than their logo, and my menu, including the modified version of home. And on the left hand side you can see a little bit of what's going on with when a request is made to go and display the post called chart. We can see this GQTY data that's been returned, and that's a hell of a lot less data than if it was a REST request to go and get it. Here we have now the Faust thing running against the quicker.local, and we can see on the left hand side, this is where I've actually changed it to build it using build, which is the production build versus dev, and we can see a number of different routes and how they're generated. So with a Lambda, it means that the page is going to be server-side rendered at runtime. But if we've got a open 0, then it means the page is delivered statically. So the 404 page doesn't go anywhere, it just produces that straight away. And with the other ones, with a filled-in dot, then the pages are generated as static HTML and JSON. I don't think I've got any which are marked as incremental static regeneration. When I did that, then I could actually see pages being dynamically loaded as you hovered over the menu items into the node.js code in the browser, so that when you clicked on it, it appeared instantaneously. So that's nicer for the user's experience. And then the final one is where I'll be using this thing called Fist, which is I've started modifying my own bit of content or theme, I suppose, and we can see similar stuff. This new version that WP Engine has just delivered has the understanding of the template hierarchy in the same way that PHP has a template hierarchy and the site editor has a template hierarchy. So now when you go and request some content, it can say, oh, I can display that using the template hierarchy in exactly the same way as if it would be done on WordPress. So it's rebuilding what the look and feel of WordPress, but in Node.js. Some people question why you want to do that, but if you're trying to reproduce your website, which is already built with a theme which you like, and it's PHP one and you want a Node.js one, you can at least start using the same template structure as you had before. You just have to put some work into making those components work. Now I'm conscious it's now 10 past 11, so we should actually be asking some questions. And hopefully Miriam might actually appear.
Hi.
Hello. I've got a couple more slides, Miriam,
Yeah.
and then we can get on to some questions from people.
Okay.
So the first slide is deployment. Well, I've not actually achieved it, of deploying anything, not tried, but there are a number of different places you can do it. And each one of these things costs a different amount of money. DigitalOcean Droplet is probably quite cheap. And Heroku used to be free, but I think they've changed that one now. So go and visit that. And then where can I read more? And this is a list of all of the different links I looked at. And that'll now be updated in the next version of the slides because I've added a whole load more, including a number of different videos I watched, including one by Nate. What's Nate's surname?
Finch.
Finch, who tried joining earlier on but didn't get in. Is that right? True?
Oh.
Yeah, it was there, and by the time I went to admit him, he'd dropped back off. So,
Oh, that's a shame. I'll see what's going on with him.
So I watched a video by Nate today. It was recorded 2 years ago almost, of him giving a presentation of his work with Strattic and writing a whole load of stuff in all sorts of different things. And he was doing live demo of writing the code, which is quite amazing. And that was to the WordPress Madison team in Wisconsin. So that's it. Let's go to some questions. Welcome to Miriam Schwab, who is the strategy manager, head of strategy.
So actually my title is I'm head of Strattic. I am the co-founder and formerly the CEO of Strattic. When we were acquired by Elementor, they actually have a CEO, obviously. So I couldn't be CEO anymore. So they gave me the title head of Strattic, but I always feel like it's a weird title because it's not a function. So sometimes I'll present myself as head of strategy, but I'm actually just head of the Strattic business unit in Elementor now.
Good. So have you been listening to this whilst I've been wittering away?
Yeah, that was a great presentation.
Oh,
one of the most thorough presentations I've seen about this area of WordPress.
Crikey. So what are the questions that we had that you can answer? So I just about got some understanding from Nate's thing of how contact forms might work in the Strattic solution.
Yeah, so I'll explain. So just go back to what you were when you were presenting the Atlas solution. Someone here asked, well, does that mean that I'm using the WYSIWYG and I won't be able to actually see it, what I did there on the front of the site, or what's known as the front end, and that's correct, because it's decoupled. So the WordPress site in that case just ends up functioning like a database of content, and then you can't actually see your changes on the front end until you deploy them in whatever way they have, and only then will you be able to see them. So you can't actually modify content, the visual aspect of content in WordPress using that type of solution. A tool like Elementor, which I don't know if some of you use that, would not work on that platform. So our approach on Strattic is different. As you showed, you log into your WordPress site, it spins up if it had gone to sleep in the meantime. You edit your content as usual, and you can also use page builders and anything that affects the front end of the site or the visual appearance. And then you click a button and you deploy it. But as you also mentioned, certain types of functionality that's generally known as dynamic, meaning it communicates with WordPress. It's a challenge to get it working in that type of setup because it's completely separated from the WordPress site once it's been published as static. So what we did at Strattic, and we did it like basically from the very beginning, is we identified dynamic functionality that's commonly used. So that's forms and search, 301 redirects and things like that. And we replicate that functionality using something called the edge. So the way that technology or web technology is going today is a lot of functionality is being pushed to where the user is interacting with the site, like at that point, and that's called the edge. So CDNs, you mentioned CDNs, which are content delivery networks, as someone said. They have now certain dynamic capabilities that allow you to replicate dynamic functionality there. So on Strattic, that's what we utilize in order to do that. So when you build a form in your WordPress site in Strattic, using a form plugin like Contact Form 7 or Gravity Forms or Elementor Forms, the reason it's those three forms is that we just identified that the vast majority of people are using them. So we were getting a lot of requests for those three. In the beginning, it was just Contact Form 7 and Gravity Forms, but as Elementor's user base continuously grows at quite a significant pace, and they released their forms, we needed to roll out support for that as well. So when you build a form, there's the way it looks, right? The fields and the button, all of that will always stay the same on a statically generated site. But getting that button to actually do something and submit, that's where the challenge is. So we replace the function there with something called serverless technology. And then it grabs this form submission and it sends it by email or puts it back into the WordPress site in the case of Gravity Forms. So I'm sorry if that was complicated, but basically tech magic replicates it on static, on Strattic specifically, so you can keep using, we hope, as many things as usual. Oh, Nate says he's on.
Yeah.
And yeah.
You can see him.
Hi, Nate.
Hello.
That's great. Yeah, so Nate's part of our team, and he's amazing. Nate, they mentioned this talk that you gave to the Madison community. So,
was somebody there?
No, I just watched it this afternoon. I watched it at a rate of 1.75 in order to watch it before the meeting started, and it was very good. I did start watching the your WordCamp Europe workshop.
Wow.
But
Okay.
I gave up with that one because you can't see your slides. It's just been filmed with a static camera and you can't see anything.
Oh man. Right.
So,
I do have the slides. I can get you a
I
link
looked
to
at
them real
your
quick.
slides. Well, yeah, like I saw your slides. I looked at your slides, sir. But then once you get on to actually doing the workshop with people, I couldn't see anything anymore. And I only had time to watch one of them, so I watched a 2-year-old one. So it was very good. Thank you. Anyone got some questions apart from me?
I guess my question would be for Strattic specifically, while you're here, but I guess it applies to most of them. Are you going mainly for the speed boost that Strattic can give people with their sites, or does Strattic also work now or in the future with apps as front end as well?
So that's a good question. So Strattic's got a number or quite a lot of like value propositions around having deployed a static site. One of them is performance and speed. One of them is security. Mm-hmm. One of them is scalability. The reason, so performance, once you've generated the site as static, it means every page is pre-rendered. It doesn't have to be built on the fly for users like is the case in standard WordPress. Also, all of our users get a CDN, a content delivery network, and it's automatically applied to their site. And so the site is not only fast in general, but it's fast everywhere in the world because it's replicated in edge locations around the world, like hundreds of edge locations. So whether you're in Australia or Canada or the UK, you will be delivered the site that is closest to you. That's also a speed boost. With regards to security, so WordPress has quite a significant attack surface. It has a lot of things and layers there, each of which could potentially have vulnerabilities starting from the server itself, the operating system, database, etc., PHP, WordPress, and of course all the plugins that we install. So once we've like left WordPress behind and shut it down and all you have are static files, there's very little to hack. And the hacker bots that are trying to hack WordPress, just they don't have much to do there, so they'll move on. And then with regards to scalability, I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this, but you know, you run a campaign, you suddenly get attention to your site or even like a low-level DDoS attack, and that can overwhelm the server resources in regular WordPress, and then the site gets sluggish or even crashes. In the case of a static site, there is no server, basically can scale almost infinitely, so you never have to worry about that. So those are the three value propositions. There are some other ones around more control over publishing in larger teams and things like that, but I won't get into that. So people often say, so what's the main thing? But the thing is that the main thing depends on the person who comes to Strattic to try it out.
Yeah.
So someone who's, let's say, an SEO professional, search engine optimization, marketer of some kind, or something like that, they're going to care a lot about performance. But we also have cybersecurity companies who are our customers where the security component is critical to them. The idea to them of running a WordPress site in the wild in a standard format causes them to lose sleep at night. So putting the site is literally, so putting the site on Strattic means that that they can sleep. And scalability, that also is a concern of the marketers, but also the concern of some tech resources within a company, like a DevOps person who is responsible for keeping the site alive and well. And then marketing runs a campaign. The site has issues. They go to DevOps or WebOps and they say, why isn't our site? And so that is a concern for both of them.
Yeah.
The worst is when people are running a large paid ad campaign, spending a lot of money, and the site crashes. Then they're just literally like just burning through money and wasting it. So basically the value proposition depends on who it is, and all of these are equally solved at Strattic. So it's not like one is more than the other. I'll just say personally, and this has nothing to do with anything, but the reason I started working on Strattic and started building Strattic was I had an agency before, and I started to really feel the pain points around managing and maintaining websites for customers because it was like kind of like an ongoing cat and mouse game. So for me, the security aspect of it is the most appealing, but that's just me. I'm not our customers. So I just love that we kind of make the web safer for, the site owners and the visitors. So that's that. And going forward, we have some interesting, ideas that we plan on rolling out around continuously staying ahead of the curve from a tech perspective and things like that. But in the meantime, that's our offering, and that's value. I hope that answered your question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah.
Okay.
If I can, would ferns and Micronesia work?
What?
Why not? Yeah, Andrew's got he's a fern specialist, and he's got two websites. One's called the British Pteridological Society, which is it? Who's the patron? Is it now King Charles?
We don't know.
No. And the other one is called Ferns and Micronesia, which is about the ferns on the Canaries and other islands in the Atlantic. But
it's table-driven, isn't it?
It's table-driven, yes. So, but what happens when the page is generated for the user to see it on the front end? The processing, the WP content filter is run, and your tables are converted into the HTML. And so if the WP2 static or static solution is run against that, then it will just generate the actual HTML you want to see. And so, yes, it would work fine. Yeah, so basically a site that generates front-end content using WordPress, that will work fine on Strattic. It's more like if let's say your site had a form that people submitted that then populated the table with new information on the fly, that might be problematic. By the way, we do have a free trial at Strattic. It's 14 days, so you can, oops. I want to fix that. That looks like another problem with WordPress 6.1 didn't get installed.
Yeah.
Did or didn't? Oh, what, properly?
Didn't. Looks like it didn't get installed properly.
I haven't looked at it for ages.
Well, you can test any site on Strattic. You can actually migrate a copy into it during the free trial period and then publish a static site and see if it works. And if you do test out Strattic, any of you, and let's say you were reaching some issue or whatever, feel free to chat with our support. We have a chat.
Is it clever enough to fix that?
Well, see, what's nice about our support, which isn't exactly what we are here to do, is that if you have an issue like that, our support is so good, you can message us and be like, my WordPress site is breaking, and they'll probably be able to fix it for you.
If it did actually get to that point, you wouldn't, as an end user, be able to do anything about it, would you? Don't have access. Can you have FTP access to the site?
Oh, like us, our support? What we generally do is we ask the customer to add us as an admin user in the WordPress site. With a particular email address, and then we can, if they want us to, we can go in and resolve it or find the source of the issue.
As a user myself, would I be able to FTP into it? Yes.
Oh, yes. There's SFTP.
Yes. So I would be able to get into fiddle with the code, as is the case.
Yeah, you can definitely do it yourself. Our system backs up the sites every day if a change was made to the WordPress site. So you can also always restore or backup if you're having an issue, like in standard WordPress. But let's say if your site looked like that and you published a static, the static site would actually look like that. So that's another benefit, by the way, of Strattic. If you published your site to static and it was fine, and then you log in a day later and WordPress has just broken for whatever reason, it doesn't affect the live static site. That's fine. So you can fix it, at your leisure, and then, continue working and editing, publishing.
There you go.
Yeah.
So what Strattic does that using a free plugin doesn't do is it does all the work for you, getting the changes applied to your site. If you were to do it the way I did it using the plugin WP2 Static, whatever it's called, then I had to download the zip file and unpack the zip file and all that stuff. And I was only doing it into one environment, so I don't have a preview of it.
Oh, someone did ask if it would work with larger sites, and I don't know if you were talking about the Ferns site, but we have customers running very large sites, large enterprise companies that update their sites quite often and regularly, and are doing a lot of publishing. And
if you're a magazine site which publish lots and lots of posts,
that would be a problem? Yes. Yeah. Like a news site, something that updates with a lot of blog posts, and then those blog posts are categorized in different places. If they wanted to do a full publish after every new update, then that would be painful for them. That's part of our next goals on our roadmap, to support even larger sites. But the sites that we support today are way bigger than the ones that we supported even, I would say, a year ago. So we're always trying to...
When you talk about, I don't know, Herb could show you eBPS, but that's got, I think, maybe 700 or 1,000 pages. Is that that's what I mean by large? Pages and posts and entities or whatever.
So that actually, it's ebps.org.uk. We'd have to, why did that not work for me? eBPS.
If you go into a website and then down the bottom and that menu item.
Sharing this. Down the bottom where?
No, if you go up a bit and then into website, the menu item.
All right.
And then go down, if you can go down to sitemap.
Sitemap.
But that shows us all the pages. I think that was about 700 or 800 or something. So is that a problem, or is that?
So this is where it gets structural. Like if the 700 pages are 700 blog posts, then that might be an issue. But if they're basically pages, like, WordPress pages, and like mostly not changing.
They're more pages than posts.
So then it could be okay, because what you would do is, if you edit a page, you could use, I don't know if you noticed, but we have like 3 publish options. And so one of them is called selective publish. So all you would have to do is just update that one page, and then that's it. And that would be fast.
The challenge,
the
challenge we got here is it's got event plugin.
Yeah. So
these changed daily or hourly.
Although, do they change that frequently? Are there so many events?
When this meeting is finished and on Saturday, then that will no longer be a meeting.
Right, you're right.
So you'd have to schedule.
This can either be turned into some kind of like embedded widget or something like that. We'd have to look at that. But you're absolutely correct. You have a good eye for analyzing a site and whether it would have issues. Because
the reason is it helped Andrew improve the performance of that bit. We've got a special plugin to just do that.
Yeah.
And the functionality of the events calendar is disabled on some pages. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So about with it a lot.
But if you go down a bit, this bit here, this little
bit there,
this is would that work? This is a dynamic calendar of posts. So at the moment we only have 1 post for the 16th. That's today, but we could have like 10. Would that work all right?
So that would work okay, because it would work okay. It would work technically okay if you did a full publish and then the sidebar was republished across the site. But because it has 700 pages, that could take a while. But there's a few ways to do it. But one of them is you could, do like a nightly full publish or something like that. So then it would update for the next day, and like doesn't matter if it takes time because you're not really using it.
But it's people from all over the world look at our website, so it's never night time for everybody, is it?
Oh, I thought this was like a mostly British audience, but yeah.
Well, we have mostly British, but we have quite a lot of people in America, which is
another thing you can do. So you have one event now, and let me just see what October looked like. There's October. So you had like one event in October and one in November. So let's say if you know you're adding another event, which I guess it seems like it doesn't happen that frequently.
This is just posts. This isn't events. These are posts.
They're posts that like get associated with
the
I see. Okay.
They're unpredictable.
Okay. So when you write a post or publish one of these date associated posts, then at that point you do a more extensive publish. So it's not all the time. It's when you publish that one post. And that should take care of it.
But when you add another post, you also change the home page, or you change every page. So how would you do that? This bar on you can't see what I'm pointing at, but on the margin on the left-hand side is on every page. So this bit would change on every page every time if you added another post tomorrow,
right.
19 and 20, but that appears on every page on the website.
I think
as does the
making a
and there's another thing. This image is random. We've got like 20 images which can be picked up randomly. So if you refresh the page, it will show a different image, I think, at the top of the
that would work, because the publishing would pick up a different random number.
Yeah, that could.
I mean, a lot of these things could be. Sorry to interject. I was going to say that we've done different kind of asynchronous static friendly sidebar widget kind of things. So instead of worrying about a event that is being published kind of in one spot, we can have a list of those things, like a JSON list or something like that, and of like the most recent 100 or something, and that is a single point that can get published and updated very quickly. And then you could just have JavaScript on the front end that loads those events, and then those events would have like their own pages and stuff like that. For your header image, same thing. You could have a list of 20 or 100 different header images and just change it to JavaScript to switch out the URLs and stuff like that. There's a lot of ways to do these kind of things, but we've done most of them. So, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's like kind of a case by case basis. And then if you have a plugin like the events calendar that you're using, it depends on how I would say WordPress friendly it is. Can the events be? Can we hook into things? Can we filter things, right? Like to be able, instead of having a standard widget that they would have that relies on PHP loading, to just run off of like an API that they might have, like REST API, that could put out like 10 or 20 events or something, and then just pull 3 events or whatever it is off of that. So it all just takes a little bit of digging here and there.
Yeah, none of these seem insurmountable, but I will tell you what I just found that does seem insurmountable at this time, which is I went to your merchandise page and you have a shopping cart. I don't know what you use for a shopping cart, but
called simple cart. It's a very simple. Yeah. So, well, it's a WordPress plugin. It's written by a third party.
So it depends how much it communicates with WordPress in terms of its functionality, but that could be an issue, adding stuff to the shopping cart.
And there's other things you can't see, Miriam, which is code, which is PHP, which is just tacked on as not part of the WordPress solution.
Oh, like additional pages that are just there, but they're not WordPress?
Yeah.
Are they part of the root domain? Like, is it EBPS?
Yes, they're all part of the site.
So it actually is possible that we can publish them because we have a functionality that allows you to like enter specific URLs.
Right. Oh, yes. Yeah.
And then, so I think our spider might be able to pick that up. I'm not sure. It's not the first time that there would be a site with pages that are external to WordPress in the root.
One opportunity is, so if we were to take this, how would the search work?
Oh, the search would be fine. We replaced the search with a third-party search solution called Algolia. And so it's actually a higher quality search than WordPress's native search. So you get better search, faster search, and you don't have to really do anything. It just gets applied.
And what does the search page look like?
It mostly looks like whatever it looked like originally. Sometimes we do some extra work to just get it into shape.
Right. Well,
yeah, that was one of the other things we worked on to make sure we support.
Thank you very much. We've asked lots of questions and had lots of answers, and we've, as always, run over time. So I think today, with only a few people here, I'm probably not going to go through shall I go through the rest of my slides? Who wants to see them? I do.
Speed read them.
All right. I
have to drop off. So it's 20 to 11 here. So, but this is really interesting, and really that was a great presentation. Like I said, one of the most thorough, and I enjoyed listening to it, and I enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for answering questions.
Thank you. Bye.
Right, now I'm on
1.75, Herb.
What?
1.75.
What is?
You got to do your thing at 1.75 times normal speed.
All right. No, you can watch the recording at 1.7 times normal speed.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. Where are we going? There's a hell of a lot more to read. That would take you a while to do it, including Nate's videos and his website and his WordPress as an API GitHub thing, which says he'll be putting the link to the slides in there at some point in time, and I haven't done that yet. Hint, hint. A big thank you to our WordPress global community sponsors, Jetpack, WooCommerce, Bluehost, Weglot, and Access, WordPress.com. Guess what? There are 452 members now in our group, and we had 40-something people signed up. And do you know that as of about 6:30, there were 499,970 WordPress members on WordPress Meetup chapter, whatever it's called. So it's probably just gone to 500,000. So we can probably tweet that and have a quick look. Here's our chart of how many we've signed up. I think I'm going to need to change it to have 3 different charts to make it a bit more obvious what's happening with the attendees and the joined.
Yeah, good idea.
This month so far, WordPress 6.1 was released, and 2 of my sites have crashed instantaneously when I updated. Andrew's site crashed because it only got half installed, and one of my sites had the same. Graham Armfield was a WordPress Accessibility Day, which I missed, fortunately. But I did go to WordPress Cambridge Meetup, which went through some other things in WordPress 6.1 in 2023. And lo and behold, yesterday, WordPress 6.1.1 was released. In a month's time, we'll be having WordPress Live, and that'll be the same date as our Meetup, is it? Probably. WordPress Brighton were planning on having a meeting in November, but they didn't. So we'll see if they're going to have one in December. We're going to have one in December. Right, full site editing themes. I've updated this slightly. There are now 178 as far as I'm concerned, and 177 as far as WordPress.org are concerned. I'm not quite sure which one's missing. But now there's this thing called style variations, of which you can get 10 different style variations and therefore 11 different ways of looking at it. For the 2023 theme, you could actually consider there's 451 full site editing styles you can choose from, compared to 10,000 and something WordPress traditional themes, PHP, which, as you can see from that chart below, still growing at 7 times the number of those themes being developed per month as there are full site editing site editor themes. Interesting. Next month we're going to talk about Battle of the Clashes of the Clashes.
Clashes the Caches, yes.
The Caches. And I've also convinced the Cambridge Meetup they're going to talk about that in January as well. So hopefully some people are going to try to use a different caching plugin on somewhere and say why it works for them and compare that with another caching plugin. So there have been caching plugins like W3 Cache. I've forgotten what they're called now. And of course, the one that I use is in SiteGround. So they have the SiteGround Optimizer, which does its own caching stuff. So I probably need to go and get some other hosting in order to try different ones out, or just rely on my local development environment. Anyway, I've got a month to get there. WordPress 6.1 have been downloaded 36 million times earlier this afternoon. Gutenberg plugin is version 14.5.0, and I found a bug in it that doesn't work with WordPress 6.1, but it's so minor that you don't need to worry about it. But the fact I found that same bug a year ago is disappointing. There are now 60,000 plugins, 6 times as many themes. We know about how many different themes and variations there are with full site editing, and 7.7 billion plugins have been downloaded from WordPress.org, which doesn't have a fancy front end. It probably has lots of caching, but that certainly has a lot of stuff. And here we come to the end. Thank you very much for Red IT, our sponsor since we restarted in 2018, and 34SP, who have also been sponsoring us. And that is the end of the slideshow. It is now 8:30. I'm not allowed to eat or drink anymore apart from water until I have a blood test in 12 hours' time. I'm going to stop recording. How do I do that?
Thank you.